Hello friends, Lady Lee here from Lady Lee's Home with a short tutorial for you on how to properly freeze green beans. It is the end of the green bean season here in the south. There's a little bit more on the vines and then we're done with green beans until next year. They are easy to grow, relatively easy to grow. The Japanese beetles are the only thing that kind of bothers them here in the south. But other than that, they're pretty easy to grow, direct seeded, and grow really quickly and produce a ton of green beans. I have a whole blog post on the blog on how to grow green beans, and I will link to it below if any of you need some more information about that. But it is time to kind of preserve the last of the harvest for this season, and my favorite way of doing it when it comes to green beans is by freezing them. I do can green beans sometimes, but they're just too mushy for me. I like to keep them crunchy and green, vibrant green and beautiful. And by blanching green beans before you freeze them, they really stay almost in a fresh state for the whole time that they're in the freezer. And the way that I do it is also really easy to just grab a few or just as many as you want. So let's get to it. We started by just cleaning, so just trimming the ends, and then you can leave them in one long piece or you can cut them. I like to cut them in half. You can cut them even smaller than that. Try to think of how you're going to use them later and then cut them accordingly. Then you bring a pot of water to a boil, and you add your green beans to the boiling water for just two to 3 minutes. I like to stay around 2 minutes. I don't wait for the water to go back to boiling. I just let them kind of float in the boiling water, in the hot water, for 2 minutes, and from there we are moving them into an ice bath. So basically a large mixing bowl with cold water and ice in it, and that will help us stop the cooking immediately so they don't get soft. Blanching is really important, especially if you're going to store your green beans in the freezer for a long time. Some people ask if blanching is really required for freezing. I would say it's not required if you know that you're going to use your green beans within, let's say, 2 to 3 months. But if you want them to stay in the freezer for a longer period and you want them to stay crunchy and fresh and green and beautiful, then the boiling water kills all the bacteria and really helps them keep fresh and in a much better state in the freezer for months, for a year, for 18 months even, easily. So after we let them cool in the ice water for a few minutes, I line a baking sheet with parchment paper and then I put a paper towel on top of it. I use a skimmer ladle or slotted spoon, whatever you call it, to scoop the beans onto the paper towel. And basically I'm just trying to dry them, so the towel absorbs some of the water, and then I get rid of it, leave the green beans on the parchment paper, and take another paper towel and kind of dry them with that too. Then we want to set them in one layer on the baking sheet and cover them with plastic wrap, and then I send them to the freezer this way for about 24 hours. After 24 hours, we get them out of the freezer, and basically freezing them like that on a baking sheet just makes it easier to grab them later. I used to put them in a food vacuum bag and then just vacuum them and put them in the freezer. It's possible too, but you end up with a whole lot of green beans that are just kind of stuck together, and if you don't want to use all of them later, it's kind of hard. But you can see here that when you freeze them on the baking sheet, they're frozen individually, and then I put them in a Ziploc bag and send them back to the freezer. And it's really easy for me to just open the bag and grab a handful and use them, or if I don't want to use the whole bag. I like adding them to casseroles, right frozen. You don't have to thaw them or anything. I like adding them to salads. So if you do add them to salads, then usually I let them thaw and then just dry them a little bit again. Or if I want them softer in a salad, then I will steam them a little further. But it's really super easy to use them later. It's a great ingredient to have on hand, and it's really easy to freeze them and preserve them this way right from the garden. So I hope this was helpful. The step-by-step instructions and printable recipe card are on the blog. I'll link to all of that below, and I'll see you again in the next video. Thanks for watching.